I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down. And I'm happy with that.
Today I'm going to talk about the scientific method, and if you were to put religion just in general first, just religion, the religions very specifically of the God of Israel, into this formula, you'll see that it actually works out quite well. And then I'm also going to talk about the Dawkins issue. Dawkins' issue is he came on to a show and he in real time discovered that he's wrestling God in front of everybody and he's losing, and he has spent his whole life, and I'm not making fun of him at all because that's not my agenda here, it's not necessary. He spent his whole life coming against Christianity and railing against it, but he happens to love the outcome of it, which is religion, the religion, or the culture, I should say, which he hates religion in general, just all religions, but he likes a particular culture of a particular religion, which is Christianity. He doesn't like the Muslim faith and what it offers. And so all of a sudden, when being challenged with the God who will behead you because you don't believe in him, or the God that sacrificed himself because he loved you so, he decided, I kind of like the God that sacrifices himself. And he's like, oh, but religion has a lot of nonsense, and but he doesn't really do the math. And the math is, but does what you call nonsense when put into reality actually equal something positive? Like something like, I don't know, a culture that you like, a culture that's safe, a culture that promotes equality of all kinds, not your definition of equality, because he's his own God and he's bought into the worldly God and the worldly ideas and the worldly ideologies, which, by the way, is what happened when Moses left to go up to the mountain. He left a lot of people to have a lot of idols because they didn't have the Holy Spirit, right? This is why Jesus is necessary. Otherwise, you go into that circle. I'm going to call it the Dawkins heart. The Dawkins heart, a hard, cold heart. And even God screaming at you and saying, you don't make sense right now. I mean, we all see he does it. He's one of the most intellectual people that walk the face of the earth. That can never be taken away from him. But he's also his own God, and his ego is his own God. And you know this because his ego lashed out at the interviewer because he started to realize this sounds weird. All the books behind him, and his whole life, his whole existence is bent on destroying religion, but very specifically, not just any religion, Christianity. And now he's realizing, oh no, Christianity is leaving and something else is going to come fill the void. And what's ever filling the void is actually quite what he considers to be evil. He doesn't like that. So what does he do? He starts saying, well, it is nonsense. It is nonsense. Oh, do you believe in the virgin birth? What is the virgin birth? It is that which is innocent and childlike, giving birth to something that rules the universe, that rules all of reality. And we know this is true because reality screams to you and says, there is a formula. And it's like gravity. So Dawkins keeps throwing something in the air and gets surprising that he keeps getting surprised that it falls. He's like, oh, but it's such a nonsense, the virgin birth, and he throws it up in the air and then it falls. And he's like, I can't believe it fell and hit the ground. Like, that's so weird. Oh, religion sucks. So I don't believe in religion. And then he throws it up in the air. And then at the end of his life, because these things take a while to be processed for reality to show you this is how it works, it hits the ground and he goes, oh no. I'm a cultural Christian. I hate Christianity. I hate the religion. I hate this and that, but I'm a cultural Christian. So you like the outcome. You like what it equals, but you don't like the formula. I don't believe in what religion says and what it does, but it equals things I really like. How is that mathing? That doesn't make sense. So what happens is he's wrestling God in front of everybody. And I don't envy him for that. And I don't think that's like something to make fun of. A lot of people making fun of him for it. But because he's maybe somebody's grandfather or somebody's dad, who knows? I don't know his life. But he starts kind of lashing out the lady and saying, do you believe in the virgin birth? And I know I've said this already, but I need it to be made clear that all the things that are nonsense, that don't make sense to you, like when somebody says, well, how does the universe get created? They say, it's a big bang. That's another way of saying what Christians say, which is, it's a mystery. I mean, we could call God saying, let there be light, a bang. Maybe there was a sound, maybe there wasn't. I don't know. I mean, he created it. And I mean, what's the difference between you saying how it was created and I was, except for I heard a sound and you just saw what happened. You didn't hear the sound. You didn't hear him say, let there be light, but you saw the bang that made it. You know what I'm saying? So like, I think we're coming to the same conclusions, but the math isn't math on their side, because whenever you live out a reality or a society, just like we've seen over and over again, it's listed in the Bible. God's like, you just keep doing the same things over and over and over again and get surprised by the outcome. That's what he's doing. It says there, Sodom and Gomorrah is in the Bible. Why is it there? Nineveh's in the Bible. And when Whoopi Goldberg goes on and says, oh, God does not warn, okay, tell that to Jonah. Jonah was told, you go warn your enemies that I'm about to cast judgment upon them. And he said to God, no. He left, got in a boat, and tried to leave. They pushed him overboard because of a massive storm. He ended up in the what people say is in the mouth of a well. I personally think he was sleeping that whole time, in my opinion, because, my logic is really important. I must have my own God complex. But the fact that, you're in salt water, you maybe pass out, you end up on shore. Maybe he had a wild dream. I have no idea. He ended up on the shore somewhere close to where he needed to be, and he ended up saying 5 words inside of Nineveh, a place full of the Assyrians, not the Jews, not the Israelites, and he left. That's all he said. He said, that's all I'm going to do. And then I'm going to sit up on this mountain and watch it get destroyed, because they won't change. And that's a warning to Christians. Don't do that. Don't go out there like, I don't need Dawkins to be destroyed. It's not the agenda here. I want him to come to know Jesus Christ as Lord. I want him to see the cycle before it actually not just kills him physically, because that will happen first, but it will also kill him in the second death, which is spiritually. And I don't want that for him. But I also think he's also hurt a lot of people who watched him, who listened to him, and who needed that intellectual God self to be realized. And he helped them. And I don't think he knows that. So the next thing I want to talk about was the scientific method. When you apply religion into this whole list of things that one does in order to complete the scientific method, and you'll come to a conclusion. You'll kind of see what works when you put things through the scientific method. You have a hypothesis, you are observing, and if you really just take a look, it doesn't even take the whole method. If you just look at history, and you just use the God of Israel as the prism in which to see things through, you'll see that the religions over the Middle East, Israel, like the United States of America and the UK, that which are based on the God of Israel type religions, these societies tend to do better. Not the best, but they're around still. A lot of those societies that didn't do well aren't here anymore and don't thrive, and there's not a lot of freedom. And before slavery was abolished in the UK before it was abolished in the UK, because the UK is a Christian country, slavery was a common thing. It was common around the world. It was common in every culture, and God addresses it in saying, if you're going to do this, because he can't change your heart, if you're going to do this, you're going to do it in the nicest, sweetest way possible, because you guys won't change. You'll always enslave each other. I mean, this is the God of Israel who freed people from Egypt. He's clearly not into slavery, but we also have a heart that enslaves ourselves, enslaves other people. It's just the way we are. So anyway, if you look at these countries, they're the ones who do best, but I'll break them down into the 3 basics, which is the Jewish faith, the Islamic faith, and the Christian faith. The problem is with the Jewish faith very specifically, there's not a big sample size. It's a very private community. It's something you have to consciously say, I am a part of this, because if you don't fully participate, they'll just cast you out, depending on the type of Jewish you are, I suppose. So there's really not a whole lot to go based off, at least in my knowledge. I don't have a lot of Jewish knowledge as far as historically. I just know what happened during Jesus' time and not a whole lot else, but it seems like they are kind of the same mind, so it's a society that works really well, because they have their traditions, their rituals, and routines, and they thrive even under oppression. They do really well, which is great. So they are under the God of Israel. But then there's also the Islamic faith. The problem with the Islamic faith is they are easily radicalized, because they hold the Bible very loosely. If you talk to any person who's Muslim, they'll say, we believe in the Bible, and we believe Mary was blessed, and we do believe that Jesus was a prophet. This is what they say every time. So they hold on to the Bible very loosely, but they grasp very strongly the Quran. I got no words against the Quran. I got nothing to say about it. It's just sometimes you can see the fruit of something. And if you see the fruit, there it is. I'm not going to talk about it. Anyway, because they don't closely stick to Yeshua HaMashiach as the Messiah, you can see that there's a little bit of disarray in some countries that are underneath Sharia law. You can see that in the women's rights, which Dawkin actually spoke on. You can see there's very little to no equality. I talk to people in those countries through a secondary job that I have. And up until like 2 or 3 years ago, women couldn't drive, but then all of a sudden they could. And I also heard a lot of very loud prayers and stuff happening outside the windows, which is very invasive when we were trying to talk and I was trying to teach. And basically that stopped, because I talked to some of my people who are living in certain countries, and they said, yeah, they actually lowered the volume because it was really loud and you could hear it in your house. And I was like, yeah, I actually could hear it through your house, so it's really pushy. Okay, it's a very pushy religion. And I don't really know, especially since there hasn't been a lot of people who have spoken against October 7th on that side of the aisle that I've seen. I can't say that it's sincerely the religion of peace that it wants to claim to be. And I think we can all agree on that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying all people are that way on that side of the aisle, because I have a lot of people that I teach that I love, a lot of people in Saudi Arabia, wonderful people. It's just, it's easily radicalized, and they do get shamed for liking other groups that are not what they consider to be equal to them. So there's that. So I don't look down on anybody, though. I'm just making that clear. But as far as Christianity goes, this I do know. This is my wheelhouse. Hospitals, orphanages, food shelves, medicine, certain types of medicine, universities, homeless shelters. These were not inspired by atheism. This was inspired very uniquely by Christianity. The sciences, people like Sir Isaac Newton, I always go and point to him, but he's one of many. I have made a video on it. Anyhow, he studied science as closely as he did theology. He had a lot of funny, quirky theological things he did. He also had this thing with trying to find the philosopher's stone and stuff. I don't know. He had this side like hustle. But anyhow, then there was the spiritual evolution of within a society. So you can see how healthy a society is underneath the religion in which they exist, because you can tell in Islam, they kind of get stuck. And when you go to those countries, it feels like a different time, because people are dressed differently, even though some of the countries are very well taken care of and beautiful, but there are like very strict rules as far as law goes, very strict. Women have to dress a certain way, or you could be in a lot of trouble, maybe even in physical harm. And you can see this in the UK. A lot of women are being harassed because they don't dress the way that these men think they should. So they're like, well, you're lesser than us because you don't dress correctly, so we get to do what we want to you. That's not really a loving, peaceful, air quote, religion, in my opinion. But that's also could just be cultural and not all the religion. It just could be cultural. But anyhow, you can see in the evolution of the UK being the first to abolish slavery officially, and the way that it worked in the United States of America, because of the Holy Spirit and the demand, that kind of blue flame that moves within us. You can feel it as a society when God's saying, this is going to come to an end today. This is ending today. And I don't care how you're going to move this mountain, but this is going to get moved. And the people I'm using are you. You are the tools. And that's what happened, I believe, with slavery. Because for so many people to just pick up, put their life on the line, who do not look like the people who were enslaved, something Holy Spirit inspired happened. I think a lot of things had to move at the same time for that to go down. And I think it was the Holy Spirit. This is my opinion. It's Holy Spirit inspired. So you can tell with the way countries move that our country, I'm going to say, because I don't know the history of other countries as well, seems to have been truly Christian inspired, right down to the Constitution, right down to their agenda, their intentions, the way that it's worded, all men being created equal. You can tell what they were aiming for, even though it was culturally not really cool or trendy. They still were fighting for something and aiming for something that was on closer to God level, closer to God's standard than human standard, above human standard. So this is why, if you were to put these different religions, just the religion in general of anything underneath the God of Israel, you'll see that those countries did better. They're still around. But then you'll also see, if you break them down individually, Christianity thrives. And I believe that's because it is 100% true. The truth of Jesus Christ is 100%. And the reason why we know this is because I do think we need a Moses. And I think Jesus is that spiritual Moses. We needed the Holy Spirit so that when he goes back up to the mountain to have conversations with God, like right now he's gone, right now he's going to come back down. We're kind of like, the people sitting at the bottom of the mountain. We could choose to have idols. We could choose to idolize. We could do all kinds of things and replace that God-shaped heart with something else, or we could choose to continue to follow Jesus Christ and remember him. And the reason and the way in which we do this is through the rituals, is through the routines, and through remembering we have the Holy Spirit and invoking the Holy Spirit and saying, listen, I'm weak, you are strong. This is the only way to get through this. This is why I know Jesus is true. And you can see with the way reality is saying, A plus B equals Dawkins is in a cycle. He's in a cycle, right? This is not adding up. Dawkins is not doing the math. If you just see the way reality treats what he's saying, oh, religion and God and the Christian concepts are nonsense. Weird, because they work really well. They've worked time and time again. So what if it's nonsense and time says that it works? Society and the way societies have come out says it works. And in our own individual lives, with the sample size that we have, with people being freed from drug addiction overnight, people like Dr. Michael Brown, people with their own stories who don't know each other personally, from all tribes, nations, and tongues. That sample size is huge. We're talking about people who used to be Jewish, who were Jews, coming into Christianity and knowing Jesus Christ as Lord. How is this not true? The math is mathing. The outcome is true. So what you're saying is nonsense is obviously not, because the math says it is true. So that's what I'm trying to say, is he's in a cycle. And I don't want a Dawkins heart, is what I'm trying to say. I don't want to be cold-hearted. I don't want to be so like, I need to protect my own ego in order to, in order to be my own God, or in order to explain away all these things that just are adding up, but I don't know why they're adding up, and I'm a cultural this, but I really hate it. Well, why would you be this? Why would you be so backwards? That in itself doesn't make sense. Why would you fight the very thing that you identify as culturally? That's like me saying, I'm culturally American, but I hate America. I don't understand. Or I hate the Constitution, or I hate this. I don't even know how this, but he's a very intellectual person. He's known for how smart he is. But why does this not add up? Because he's wrestling with God, and he's doing it publicly. And if you wrestle God, you lose. And he cares what other people think. So he's like, I'm really like, need my ego to be upped, because I care about the consciousness of other human beings, because I see them and they're here and they're physical and they're reality, and I can speak to them because, I hear them with my ears. But he doesn't realize God speaks the language of reality. And he'll tell you, with the positions he puts you in, this is the truth. Look at it. It's right there. Look at the sunset. I painted that. I did that for you. Look at Jesus on the cross. He died because he died for you. But nobody wants to see it. Nobody wants to see the revelation. They just want to. It's just easier not to, I think, sometimes, especially as human beings. Life is already very difficult. And I feel for him. I'm not saying that he's a bad person or something. I just think he's a very good example of what I felt like God has done to me. So I'm not judging the guy. Has he annoyed me throughout the years? Absolutely. I've been very annoyed by him, and I've had to stop myself from railing. He's the reason why I went, honestly, from being a hardcore atheist, and I've said this before in the past, to being kind of like, I don't know if I want to be an atheist. I think there might be something out there, to being a Christian, because I saw him fighting against something. Any atheist that needs to get the kitchen sink in order to fight something, any atheist that spends his days railing against the wind and saying, there is no wind, but there's something fighting you. What are you fighting? If you're so preoccupied with this, what are you doing? And that's what got me to the realization, just the reality of watching the atheists fight. I realized, what are they doing? And what is the resistance? Why is there something resisting them? Why does it seem like there's actually something there? Because there is. And I think this is a perfect example of what I was seeing. There's a cycle and a pattern, and they're definitely fighting something. This is Linda of Christ is King Forever. May God be with you.